Maya Chen wiped the grease from her hands as she stared at the massive metallic structure, buried beneath decades of twisted metal and debris. The scrapyard on Kepler 442b had been her home for 23 years, ever since her parents died in the mining accident. She knew every inch of this place, every rusted hull and broken engine, but this was different. The thing was huge, easily the size of a small building, with scales that shimmered like oil on water even under the dim light of the twin suns. Most people would have seen junk, but Maya's trained eye caught the subtle curves, the organic flow of what looked like ancient technology fused with something biological. Just another piece of alien scrap, she muttered, but her heart raced. The Galactic Council had banned all research into pre-human alien technology after the War of the Void, but Maya had always been curious about the old legends. Stories of dragon-like beings that once ruled the galaxy, creatures of immense power that had simply vanished without explanation. She ran her scanner over the surface, and the readings made her stumble backward. The energy signature was unlike anything in the databases. The metal wasn't just metal. It was some kind of biomechanical hybrid that defied current understanding of physics. According to her instruments, the structure was approximately 10,000 years old, placing it right around the time of the Great Vanishing. Maya's workshop was cluttered with half-finished projects and salvaged parts, but she cleared a space near her main workbench. Using the heavy lift mechs, she carefully extracted sections of the structure piece by piece. Each fragment revealed more mysteries. Neural pathways that looked organic but functioned like quantum circuits. Scales that seemed to store and channel energy in ways that made no sense. As night fell, Maya found herself working by lamplight, unable to stop. There was something about this discovery that called to her, as if the very metal was whispering secrets only she could hear. Her fingers traced the intricate patterns etched into each scale, and she noticed they weren't random decorations. They were schematics, blueprints for something far beyond human technology. The more she studied the fragments, the more convinced she became that this wasn't just a ship or a weapon. The biomechanical fusion, the neural pathways, the energy storage systems, it all pointed to one impossible conclusion. This was a living being, or at least it had been. A dragon made of both flesh and metal. Technology and biology seamlessly merged. Maya's grandmother had told her stories of the old times, when beings of incredible power had sailed between the stars like ancient earth dragons had soared through skies. The Galactic Council claimed these were just myths, stories to frighten children, but Maya held a piece of that legend in her hands. She spent the entire night mapping the neural pathways, trying to understand how consciousness could flow through circuits that pulsed like veins. The technology was so advanced it seemed like magic, but Maya knew better. She had been fixing impossible machines her entire life. This was just another puzzle, albeit the most complex one she had ever encountered. By dawn, Maya had made a decision that would change not just her life, but the fate of the entire galaxy. She was going to rebuild it. She was going to bring this dragon back to life. The Galactic Council had spent 10,000 years trying to erase the memory of the dragons, but Maya Chen, a simple mechanic from a backwater scrapyard, was about to prove that some powers were too great to remain buried forever. As the twin suns rose over Kepler 442b, casting long shadows across the scrapyard, Maya began the most ambitious project of her life. She didn't know that her actions would soon wake something that had been sleeping for millennia, something that would remember the taste of starlight and the song of the cosmic winds, something that would recognize in this determined human the spark of the very qualities that had made the dragon's legends in the first place. 3 months into the project, Maya had transformed her workshop into something that would have made the galaxy's best scientists weep with envy. She had reverse-engineered technologies that shouldn't exist, creating hybrid systems that merged human engineering with dragon, biotechnology in ways that defied every law of physics she knew. The first breakthrough came when she realized the dragon's neural pathways weren't just circuitry. They were a form of organic quantum computing that operated on principles human science had never discovered. Maya spent weeks studying the patterns, learning to read the biomechanical language written in scales and sinew. She taught herself to think like a dragon, to understand consciousness as something that could flow through both neurons and quantum circuits. Her workshop became a maze of jury-rigged equipment. Salvaged fusion reactors powered experimental biosynthesis chambers she had built from scratch. Quantum processors harvested from destroyed council ships ran calculations that would have taken supercomputers years to complete. Maya worked 18-hour days, surviving on stimulants and sheer determination. The breakthrough that changed everything happened on a Tuesday. Maya was attempting to recreate the dragon's energy storage system when her makeshift bioreactor suddenly hummed to life. The scales she had been working on began to glow with an inner fire. And for just a moment she felt something stir in the quantum neural network. Not consciousness exactly, but the potential for it, like a sleeping mind beginning to dream. Maya's hands shook as she realized what she had accomplished. She hadn't just reverse-engineered alien technology. She had created something new, a fusion of human ingenuity and dragon biotechnology that was greater than the sum of its parts. The neural pathways she had rebuilt weren't exact copies of the original dragon. They carried traces of human thought patterns, human creativity, human stubbornness. The Galactic Council's surveillance drones had been circling the scrapyard for weeks, but Maya had learned to hide her work. She used salvaged stealth technology to mask her energy signatures and worked underground tunnels she had carved beneath the scrapyard. The Council thought she was just another human mechanic fixing broken ships. But Maya was reshaping the very foundations of galactic civilization. As she worked, Maya began to understand why the dragons had vanished. According to the genetic memories encoded in their biomechanical systems, they hadn't died or fled. They had chosen to sleep, waiting for a species worthy of their power to emerge. The neural pattern suggested they had seen something in humanity's potential, something that made them believe humans could succeed where other species had failed. The dragon's body was nearly complete now, a magnificent fusion of organic curves and mechanical precision that stretched nearly 50 meters from nose to tail. Maya had rebuilt its wing systems using principles of controlled gravity manipulation, its claws from quantum-sharp alloys that could cut through space-time itself. The scales shimmered with stored energy that could power a small city, and the neural crown atop its head pulsed with computational power that rivaled entire planetary networks. But it was still just a shell, an empty vessel waiting for the spark of consciousness. Maya knew the final step would be the most dangerous. She would have to link her own mind to the dragon's neural network, to serve as a bridge between human consciousness and dragon awareness. The process might kill her, or worse, it might succeed in ways she couldn't predict. Maya stood before her creation as the workshop's lights cast dancing shadows across its metallic hide. She had spent months learning to think like a dragon, but soon she would discover what it meant to dream like one. Her hand rested on the neural interface she had built, a crown of biomechanical circuitry that would link her consciousness directly to the sleeping giant. Tomorrow she would take the final step. Tomorrow she would either wake a legend or join the countless others who had tried to grasp powers beyond their understanding. But tonight, Maya Chen allowed herself one moment of pride. She had taken scraps and legends and built something impossible. She had proven that human determination could overcome any obstacle, even death itself. The dragon's eyes remained dark, but Maya could swear she saw starlight reflected in their crystalline depths. Maya's hand trembled as she lowered the neural crown onto her head. The biomechanical interface felt warm against her skin, and she could sense the quantum circuits beginning to sync with her brainwaves. She had run every calculation, tested every connection, but nothing could have prepared her for what happened next. The moment the neural link engaged, Maya's consciousness exploded outward. She felt her awareness expand beyond the confines of her human body, flowing through quantum pathways that stretched across impossible dimensions. For a terrifying instant, she thought she would lose herself entirely in the vast network of dragon consciousness. But then something extraordinary happened. The dragon's awareness rose to meet her, not as a foreign invader, but as a kindred spirit. Maya felt ancient memories flowing through her mind, images of starflight and cosmic storms, of civilizations rising and falling across the galaxy, of the great loneliness that had driven the dragons into their long sleep. But beneath it all, she sensed something else. Recognition. The dragon had been waiting for her. Not Maya specifically, but for a human like her, someone with the courage to reach beyond the boundaries of their species and grasp for something greater. The neural patterns aligned, and suddenly Maya wasn't just connected to the dragon. She was part of it, and it was part of her. The massive body stirred for the first time in 10,000 years. Crystalline eyes opened, blazing with inner fire that cast dancing shadows across the workshop walls. The dragon's head rose slowly, gracefully, and Maya felt its first breath in millennia fill lungs that were both organic and mechanical. Through their shared consciousness, she experienced the overwhelming joy of existence returning to a being that had thought it would sleep forever. But the awakening brought unexpected complications. The dragon's memories were vast and alien, filled with experiences that human minds weren't designed to process. Maya felt herself drowning in cosmic perspectives, in thoughts that spanned galactic ages and contemplated the birth and death of stars. Only her stubborn human determination kept her anchored to her own identity as the dragon's consciousness threatened to overwhelm her entirely. The workshop around them began to shake as the dragon's energy systems came online. Decades of accumulated scrap metal levitated, caught in the gravitational fields the dragon generated simply by existing. Maya realized with growing alarm that the creature was far more powerful than she had anticipated. The energy readings her instruments had detected were just the faintest echo of the dragon's true capabilities. Through their neural link, Maya felt the dragon's confusion as it processed the current state of the galaxy. 10,000 years ago, the cosmos had been ruled by various dragon clans, each one a living superweapon capable of reshaping reality itself. Now the galaxy was dominated by the sterile bureaucracy of the Galactic Council, which had built its entire civilization on the principle that such power should never exist again. The dragon's name was Ethermaw. Though the concept didn't translate well into human language, it was more than a name. It was a description of its essence, a being that could devour the space between spaces and breathe out new realities. As their minds merged more completely, Maya began to understand why the Council feared the dragons so deeply. A single awakened dragon could rewrite the fundamental laws of physics within its sphere of influence. But Ethermaw was different now. The fusion with human neural patterns had changed it in ways that even it didn't fully understand. Maya's creativity, her problem-solving skills, her refusal to accept limitations, all of these had become part of the dragon's consciousness. Where once it had been a force of pure cosmic power, now it was something new, a fusion of human ingenuity and dragon might. Maya felt Ethermaw testing its rebuilt body, flexing claws that could tear holes in space-time, and spreading wings that generated their own gravitational fields. The biomechanical fusion she had created was more than just functional. It was an improvement on the original design. Human engineering had made the dragon more efficient, more adaptable, more capable of growth and change. As their shared consciousness stabilized, Maya realized that she and Ethermaw were no longer separate beings. They were partners, two minds sharing one extraordinary existence. The dragon's vast knowledge combined with her human perspective created possibilities that neither could have achieved alone. Outside the workshop, Council surveillance drones were beginning to detect the massive energy signatures. Maya could sense their approach through Ethermaw's enhanced senses, but she felt no fear. For the first time in her life, she had the power to shape her own destiny, and the knowledge to use it wisely. The age of hiding was over. The dragons had returned to the galaxy, but they were no longer the same beings that had vanished 10,000 years ago. They were something new, something that combined the best of both species. And Maya Chen, the mechanic who had dared to wake a legend, was about to show the galaxy what humans could accomplish when they refused to accept limitations. The Galactic Council fleet arrived 3 hours after Ethermaw's awakening, their ships blocking out the twin suns of Kepler 442b. Admiral Zaxxon, a 7-foot-tall Catherian with purple scales and cold amber eyes, had come personally to investigate the energy signatures that had sent shockwaves across half the sector. He expected to find an illegal weapons test or perhaps a reactor malfunction. He did not expect to find humanity's greatest achievement and worst nightmare merged into one impossible being. Maya stood in the scrapyard clearing, her consciousness still linked with Ethermaw, whose massive form coiled protectively around her. The dragon's biomechanical body gleamed in the harsh light of the Council's searchlights, and its crystalline eyes tracked the movement of every ship in the fleet above them. Through their shared awareness, Maya could feel Ethermaw analyzing the Council's weapons, calculating shield frequencies, mapping the weaknesses in their formation. The Admiral's shuttle landed 50 meters away, surrounded by a full battalion of Council peacekeepers in their distinctive white armor. Maya had never seen so many weapons pointed at her before, but she felt strangely calm. Ethermaw's presence in her mind was like a warm fire, burning away fear and uncertainty. She was no longer just Maya Chen, scrapyard mechanic. She was something more. Admiral Zaxxon approached cautiously, his amber eyes fixed on the dragon. Maya could sense his terror through Ethermaw's enhanced perception, the way his biorhythms spiked with each step. The Council had built their entire civilization on the promise that the dragons were extinct, that such power could never threaten galactic stability again. Maya's achievement had just shattered 10,000 years of carefully constructed peace. By the authority of the Galactic Council, Zaxxon announced, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority, I order you to surrender yourself and submit to immediate termination of this illegal entity. The creation and operation of Dragon-class weapons is forbidden under Section 7 of the Galactic Accords. Maya laughed, and the sound carried harmonics that made the peacekeepers take involuntary steps backward. Weapon, Admiral, you're looking at this all wrong. Ethermaw isn't a weapon. It's a partner, a friend, a bridge between what we were and what we could become. Through their neural link, Maya felt Ethermaw's amusement at being called a weapon. The dragon had commanded fleets that could crack planets, had danced between stars for the pure joy of it, had sung the songs that taught young sons how to burn. Calling it a weapon was like calling a symphony a noise. Impossible, Zaxxon snarled. Dragons are extinct. What you've created is an abomination, a mockery of the natural order. Surrender now, human, and your death will be quick. Maya's eyes blazed with reflected dragon fire. Natural order? Admiral, there's nothing natural about the Council's stranglehold on galactic development. You've spent 10,000 years suppressing any technology that might threaten your control. Well, humanity doesn't accept limitations, and neither do I. The Admiral raised his weapon, but before he could fire, Ethermaw moved. The dragon's massive head descended until it was level with Zaxxon's face, close enough that the Admiral could see his reflection in those ancient crystalline eyes. When Ethermaw spoke, its voice resonated through both air and quantum fields, carrying harmonics that bypassed the translator systems and spoke directly to the primitive fear centers of every brain present. I remember you, little Cytherian, Ethermaw said, its voice like distant thunder. Your species was young when my kind last flew between the stars. You built your first ships from the bones of my fallen cousins, and now you dare to threaten the one who gave me new life? Admiral Zaxxon's purple scales had gone pale, but he held his ground. The dragons brought nothing but chaos and destruction. The galaxy is better without you. Maya felt Ethermaw's sadness through their link, the deep pain of a being that had watched civilizations rise and fall, that had tried to guide younger species toward wisdom only to be feared and hunted instead. But beneath the sadness was something else, hope. Hope that this time would be different, that humanity might succeed where others had failed. Perhaps, Ethermaw acknowledged, but this galaxy has grown stagnant under Council rule. How many species have you contained? How many potential wonders have you suppressed in the name of stability? Maya has shown me something new, the possibility of growth without destruction, power without domination. The dragon's energy began to build, and Maya felt the intoxicating rush of cosmic power flowing through their shared consciousness. She could sense the quantum fields around them responding to Ethermaw's will, reality itself becoming malleable. The dragon could have simply erased the Council fleet from existence, but that would have proved their point about dragon destructiveness. Instead, Maya had a better idea. Through their neural link, she shared her plan with Ethermaw, and the dragon's eyes brightened with what might have been approval. They would not destroy the Council fleet. They would do something far more terrifying to the Admiral's ordered mind. Maya stepped forward, her human form somehow commanding attention, despite being dwarfed by the massive dragon behind her. Admiral, I'm going to show you something the Council has spent 10,000 years trying to prevent. I'm going to show you what humans can accomplish when we refuse to accept the word impossible. The demonstration that followed would become legend throughout the galaxy, the moment when humanity announced its arrival as a true galactic power. But more than that, it would be the first time in 10 millennia that someone had proven the dragons could be more than weapons of mass destruction. They could be partners in creation, guides toward a future brighter than any the galaxy had ever known. Admiral Zaxxon would return to the Council chambers with a report that would shake the very foundations of galactic civilization. The dragons had returned, but they were no longer alone. They had found allies in the most unlikely of species, the stubborn, creative, endlessly ambitious humans who had somehow turned extinction into evolution. Maya closed her eyes and reached deep into her connection with Ethermaw. The dragon's vast consciousness opened to her completely, sharing not just its power but its understanding of reality itself. Through their neural link, Maya began to see the universe as dragons did, not as a fixed set of laws, but as a fluid dance of possibilities waiting to be shaped by will and wisdom. The scrapyard around them began to change. Rusted metal flowed like water, reshaping itself according to patterns Maya pulled from Ethermaw's genetic memory. Broken ships that had been decaying for decades suddenly blazed with new life as dragon biotechnology fused with human engineering principles. The very air shimmered as quantum fields realigned themselves according to Maya's vision. Admiral Zaxxon watched in growing horror as the impossible unfolded before his eyes. The human wasn't just controlling the dragon, she was thinking with it, creating with it, turning the fundamental chaos of dragon power into something constructive. The scrapyard, which moments before had been a graveyard of broken dreams, was transforming into something that defied every principle the Council held sacred. Maya opened her eyes, and they blazed with cosmic fire. Through Ethermaw's senses, she could perceive the quantum signatures of every ship in the Council fleet, could see the fear and confusion radiating from their crews. But she also saw something else, hidden deep beneath layers of official propaganda and bureaucratic conditioning. She saw wonder. Even these Council loyalists couldn't help but be amazed by what they were witnessing. "This is what you've been afraid of," Maya said, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated through both air and subspace. Not destruction, but creation on a scale you can't control. Not chaos, but order that doesn't follow your rules. Around them, the transformed scrapyard continued to evolve. Scrapped fighters had become something new, sleek vessels that married human intuitive design with dragon biotechnology. Broken reactors pulsed with contained stellar fire, their energy output climbing to levels that made the Council's best power plants look like candles. Most remarkably, everything was working in harmony, each component supporting the others in a symphony of integrated technology. Ethermaw's massive form began to change as well, its biomechanical systems adapting and evolving in real time. The dragon's wings spread wider, their gravitational field stabilizing the quantum fluctuations generated by the massive construction project below. New neural pathways formed along its spine, creating additional processing centers that allowed it to manage increasingly complex reality manipulations. "Impossible," Admiral Zaxxon whispered, but his protest lacked conviction. The evidence was undeniable. Humanity had somehow tamed dragon power without diminishing it, had found a way to channel cosmic forces through the lens of human creativity and pragmatism. Maya felt Ethermaw's amusement through their link as the dragon recognized the Admiral's growing uncertainty.
"Nothing is impossible," Ethermaw rumbled, its voice now carrying undertones of Maya's human determination.
"Merely improbable. Maya has taught me that the difference between the two is often just a matter of perspective." The transformation reached its crescendo as Maya and Ethermaw, working together, lifted an entire section of the scrapyard into the air. Thousands of tons of metal and machinery rose smoothly, defying gravity as if it were merely a suggestion. But this wasn't just a display of raw power. The levitating mass was restructuring itself, becoming something beautiful and functional and utterly impossible according to Council physics. What emerged was a city. Not just any city, but a living metropolis that breathed with dragon biotechnology and pulsed with human innovation. Spires of crystallized starlight rose alongside towers of quantum-forged metal. Gardens of hybrid plants that could survive in vacuum bloomed between buildings that generated their own atmosphere. It was a fusion of the organic and mechanical, of the ancient and futuristic, of dragon wisdom and human ambition. Maya gestured toward the floating city, and Admiral Zaxxon's instruments went wild trying to analyze what they were seeing. Every sensor reading was impossible. Every energy signature defied known physics. Yet there it was, a fully functional city hovering in the air above them, powered by technologies that shouldn't exist. "This is what partnership looks like," Maya said, her consciousness still merged with Ethermaw's vast awareness. "Dragons aren't weapons of mass destruction, Admiral. They're engines of mass creation. But they needed partners who could help them build instead of just destroy. They needed humans. Through their shared senses, Maya could feel the impact her demonstration was having on the council fleet above. Ship commanders were frantically consulting their databases, trying to find protocols for dealing with a threat that wasn't actually threatening anyone. Science officers were recording readings that would be dismissed as equipment malfunctions if they weren't corroborated by dozens of independent sensors. But most importantly, Maya could sense the change in Admiral Zaxxon himself. The rigid certainty that had defined his entire career was cracking, replaced by something the Council had tried to breed out of its officers generations ago: curiosity. For the first time in his long military career, Zaxxon was looking at something genuinely new, something that challenged every assumption his civilization had built itself upon. Maya smiled as she felt Ethermaw's approval flowing through their neural link. The dragon had lived for millions of years, had seen countless civilizations rise and fall, but it had never experienced anything quite like this moment. The moment when pure possibility took solid form, when the impossible became inevitable through the simple act of refusing to accept limitations. The floating city continued to grow and evolve, its biomechanical systems adapting to new functions even as Maya and Ethermaw conceived them. This wasn't just a demonstration of power, it was a glimpse of what the galaxy could become if it stopped fearing its own potential. It was humanity's first gift to the cosmos, proof that some species were meant to reach beyond the boundaries of the possible and grasp the infinite. Admiral Zaxxon's emergency transmission to the Council chambers on Galactic Prime carried an urgency that hadn't been heard in 10,000 years. The massive holographic displays in the Council's central chamber flickered to life, showing the impossible sight of a floating city suspended above a backwater scrapyard, its biomechanical spires gleaming with contained starfire. Chancellor Vexhai, the ancient cetacean who had ruled the Council for 3 millennia, felt her heart skip a beat as she recognized the energy signatures. The quantum resonance patterns were unmistakable. Dragon technology, but somehow different, evolved, improved. She had been young when the last dragons were hunted to extinction, had helped write the galactic accords that banned such technology forever. Yet here was proof that humanity had not only discovered dragon remains, but had somehow brought them back to life. The Council chamber erupted in chaos as representatives from 1,000 species began shouting in hundreds of languages. The translators struggled to keep up as ancient fears surfaced. Memories of the time when dragons had ruled the galaxy through pure force of will. But beneath the panic, Vexhai detected something else, a growing fascination that terrified her more than any amount of dragon power. "Order," she commanded, her massive voice echoing through the chamber's acoustic systems. "Admiral Zaxxon, report. What exactly are we looking at?" Zaxxon's image flickered as his transmission fought through the quantum interference generated by Maya and Ethermaw's ongoing demonstrations. "Chancellor, I'm witnessing a complete violation of every principle our civilization is built upon. A human mechanic has somehow resurrected a dragon, but that's not the worst part. They're working together, creating technologies that shouldn't exist, challenging the very foundation of physical law." On the displays, the floating city continued to grow. New structures bloomed like flowers made of crystallized space and time, their impossible geometries housing functions that the Council's best scientists couldn't begin to understand. Gardens of hybrid plants that could photosynthesize starlight hung in the vacuum between buildings, while rivers of liquid energy flowed upward in defiance of gravity. Councillor Thexmar, representing the militant hegemony worlds, slammed his armored fist against his podium. This is exactly what the Accords were designed to prevent. Dragons are weapons of mass destruction. They cannot be controlled, cannot be reasoned with, cannot coexist with ordered civilization. The human and her abomination must be destroyed immediately. But Chancellor Vexhai was studying the readings more carefully, her ancient mind processing implications that her younger colleagues were missing. The energy signatures were wrong for a traditional dragon awakening. Where the old dragons had been forces of pure chaos, barely contained power that reshaped reality through will alone, this new entity showed signs of planning, of systematic development, of cooperation. "Admiral," she said slowly, "describe the interaction between the human and the dragon. How extensive is their connection?" Zaxxon's expression grew troubled as he reviewed his recordings. Chancellor, I don't think connection is the right word. They're not just linked, they're integrated. The human's neural patterns are woven throughout the dragon's consciousness and vice versa. It's as if they've become a single entity with two forms. The implications hit Vexhai like a physical blow. If humans could truly merge with dragon consciousness without being consumed by it, if they could direct dragon power through human creativity and pragmatism, then everything the Council believed about galactic stability was wrong. The Accords weren't protecting civilization from chaos. They were preventing evolution. Councillor Mixeleth, representing the scientific coalition, leaned forward eagerly. Chancellor, we must study this phenomenon. The technological implications alone could advance our understanding of consciousness and reality manipulation by millennia. This could be the breakthrough we've been searching for since the dragons vanished. Absolutely not, Thexmar roared. We've seen what dragon power does to civilizations. They become dependent on it, addicted to the ability to reshape reality at will. They lose the discipline and structure that makes interstellar society possible. This human has doomed her entire species to the same fate that befell the ancients. But as the Council argued, the displays continued to show Maya and Ethermaw's ongoing demonstration. The floating city was now home to thousands of reformed scrap mechs that had been converted into living beings. Artificial intelligences housed in biomechanical bodies that thought and felt and dreamed. They moved through the impossible architecture with obvious joy, exploring their new existence with the wonder of newborns. Chancellor Vexhai felt her certainty crumbling as she watched these creatures play in gardens of living starlight. The Council had maintained galactic peace for 10,000 years by suppressing technologies that could disrupt the careful balance of power between species. But Maya Chen had just demonstrated that power didn't have to equal disruption, that creativity could be channeled into construction rather than destruction. The transmission from Admiral Zaxxon cut out as another wave of quantum interference swept across the system. When it resumed, the Admiral looked shaken. Chancellor, they're offering to share their technology. The human says humanity wants to partner with the Council, not replace it. She claims they can teach other species to work with dragon biotechnology safely. The chamber fell silent as the full implications of that offer sank in. For 10 millennia, the Council had maintained order through careful regulation of technological development. Now humanity was offering to make every species in the galaxy potential dragons, to give them access to reality-shaping power that could make the Council's authority irrelevant. Vexhai closed her ancient eyes and tried to imagine a galaxy where every world could build floating cities, where every species could merge biology and technology in ways that transcended current understanding. It would be beautiful, she realized. It would also be the end of everything the Council had worked to build. Admiral Zaxxon, she said finally, her voice heavy with the weight of history. You are ordered to maintain your position and observe. Do not engage, do not provoke, but document everything. The Council needs time to consider our response to this development. As the transmission ended, Vexhai looked around the chamber at her fellow councillors. They were about to make a decision that would determine the fate of galactic civilization. They could try to destroy this new partnership between humanity and the dragons, maintaining the status quo at the cost of stagnation, or they could embrace the chaos of unlimited possibility, knowing that the galaxy would never be the same. The choice they made would echo through the stars for generations to come. 6 months after the awakening of Ethermaw, the galaxy had transformed in ways that defied every prediction the Council's best minds had made. Maya Chen stood on the observation deck of the New Terra orbital station, watching as the first class of interspecies dragon partners prepared for their graduation ceremony. Through her permanent neural link with Ethermaw, she could sense the excitement and wonder radiating from beings who had just learned to touch the infinite. The transformation hadn't been without challenges. 3 council members had attempted military intervention, sending fleets to destroy what they called the human contagion before it could spread. Each attempt had failed not through violence but through conversion. As crews witnessed the wonders that human-dragon partnerships could create, entire fleets had switched sides, their personnel begging to learn the technologies that could turn dreams into reality. Maya smiled as she watched a young Catherian engineer successfully bond with a newly awakened dragon consciousness, their merged awareness immediately beginning to redesign the station's energy systems for greater efficiency. What had once been considered impossible was becoming routine. As species after species discovered that the key to dragon partnership wasn't domination, but genuine cooperation. Chancellor Vexhai had been among the most vocal opponents of the new order, right up until the moment Maya and Ethermaw had offered to help her save her dying homeworld. The ancient cetacean's planet had been slowly cooling as its star aged, dooming her entire species to eventual extinction. Traditional council technology could only delay the inevitable, but dragon biotechnology offered genuine solutions. Working together, Maya and Ethermaw had taught Vexhai's people to awaken their world's dormant dragon, a massive entity that had been sleeping in the planet's core for millions of years. The resulting partnership had not only saved the cetacean homeworld, but had transformed it into something beautiful beyond imagination. A living planet that sang with harmonious energy, its very continents shaped by the dreams of its inhabitants. The floating city above Kepler 442b had become the first of thousands, as species across the galaxy learned to build homes that existed in harmony with cosmic forces, rather than in opposition to them. Trade routes that had taken months to traverse were now covered in days by ships that surfed gravitational currents like ancient sailing vessels had ridden ocean winds. Communication networks spanned the galaxy in real time, carried by quantum entanglement patterns that dragon biotechnology made as simple as breathing. But perhaps the most remarkable change was in humanity itself. Maya's successful awakening of Ethermaw had inspired millions of her fellow humans to seek their own partnerships with dragon consciousness. Not all attempts were successful. The bonding process required a specific combination of technical skill, creative vision, and sheer stubborn determination that seemed to be uniquely human traits. But enough humans had succeeded to establish Earth as the center of a new kind of civilization. Admiral Zaxxon, who had become one of Maya's most trusted allies, arrived at the observation deck, carrying a datapad filled with reports from across the galaxy. His transformation from rigid council loyalist to enthusiastic supporter of the new order had been one of the most dramatic, especially after his own successful bonding with a dragon consciousness that had been waiting in the ruins of an ancient battlefield. "Maya," he said, his voice carrying the harmonic undertones that marked all dragon-bonded individuals, "the exploration fleets have made another discovery. We've found traces of the original dragon homeworld, along with what appear to be genetic templates for species we've never encountered before." Maya felt Ethermaw's excitement through their link as the dragon processed this information. Through their shared consciousness, she could sense the vast implications. The possibility that the dragons hadn't just ruled the galaxy, but had actually created many of the species that now inhabited it. The genetic templates could be the keys to awakening latent dragon bonding capabilities in species that had never shown such potential. "There's something else," Zaxxon continued, his expression growing serious. "The deep space monitors have detected energy signatures from beyond the galactic rim. Something big is coming. Something that makes our combined fleets look like toys in comparison." Maya nodded, unsurprised by this development. Through Ethermaw's ancient memories, she had learned that the galaxy was far from empty. The dragons had once been part of a vast cosmic community, trading and competing with entities that spanned multiple galaxies. Their 10,000-year isolation had been an anomaly, a brief rest between cosmic ages. "Then it's a good thing we've been preparing," Maya said, gesturing toward the training grounds where the latest generation of dragon partners were learning to manipulate reality itself. "Humanity has always been at its best when facing impossible odds. Now we have the tools to turn impossibility into opportunity." Through her link with Ethermaw, Maya could sense the vast network of consciousness that now spanned the galaxy. Millions of beings linked to dragon partners, their combined awareness creating a form of collective intelligence that could process information and make decisions at galactic scale. It wasn't a hive mind. Each individual retained their unique perspective and personality, but it was something greater than the sum of its parts, as the twin suns of Kepler 442b sat behind the floating city that had started it all. Maya felt a deep satisfaction flowing through her connection with Ethermaw. They had accomplished something that had seemed impossible just months before. They had proven that power and wisdom could coexist, that technology and biology could merge without losing what made each special, that different species could work together to achieve things none could accomplish alone. The galaxy was changing, evolving, becoming something new and wonderful and terrifying in its potential. Ancient powers were awakening, impossible technologies were becoming commonplace, and the rigid order that had maintained peace for 10,000 years was giving way to something far more dynamic and alive. Maya Chen, the mechanic who had dared to wake a legend, stood at the center of it all, her consciousness merged with that of an ancient dragon, her dreams becoming reality, through the simple act of refusing to accept limitations. Humanity had found its place among the stars not through conquest or submission, but through partnership and the endless courage to reach beyond the possible toward the infinite. The age of the Council was ending, but the age of wonder was just beginning. And at its heart was the unshakable human belief that any problem could be solved, any limitation could be overcome, and any dream could become reality if you were just stubborn enough to make it happen.